Welcome back to the Pesky Report. This is episode 472 of the Pesky Report, brought to you by Beyond the Monster. My name is Derek. As always, I'm here with Jake and Hunter for your minor league show, and we have a lot to talk about. And I'm not joking when I say that. We actually really have a lot to talk about this week.
It's a busy one.
We're going to start, a very busy week, some promotions, and we're going to start off in Double-A with the Portland Sea Dogs. Hunter, you're in attendance as Portland played Somerset. They went 2-3 this week. Somerset, the Yankees Double-A affiliate. And I'll just hand it over to you, Hunter. We're going to, once again, Hunter gets the ball first this week. So, Hunter, what special nuggets do you have for us? What special information do you have?
Another rainy week. It's just really crappy weather up north at the moment. And I mean, Portland's had it terrible all year. I talked to Blaze Jordan before one of the games, and it was actually something we talked about is how tough it must be to get into a groove on the Portland Sea Dogs right now. The first two games of this series were rained out. They've had like two, I think they've played like 3 weekend games at Portland this year out of like a possible 8. Like it's just been terrible. But so the first 2 games were rained out. They ended up playing a doubleheader on Thursday, and then the rest of the week actually ended up, the weather was nicer than it was supposed to be. We got lucky because the start of the week it was rain every day except like Thursday. So I was like, we're going to get one game in, and this is going to suck. But just again, gorgeous ballpark, fun to be at. Awesome to get to see a lot of these guys have pretty solid weeks. Jhostynxon Garcia struggled for the most part, but he did have a 2-run homer. He did have a diving catch. I think it was literally the inning before, like the half inning before he hit the 2-run homer. And he was actually down on the ground for a little bit. So it was like, oh no, hopefully Jhostynxon's okay. And then he hits a 2-run homer. So we're seeing that power a little bit recently. He had the walk-off home run last week. He has a home run this week. Just 3 home runs on the year, 256, 355, 393 slash line. But the defense has been good. He's drawing a significant up on the walk rate. It was 7.2 last year. It's 13% this year. On Sunday, Andrew Parker of Beyond the Monster did announce that Jhostynxon Garcia was promoted to AAA. And it's one of those situations where I've seen a lot of people, nothing negative, because it's mainly been, Chris Hatfield or Tyler Milliken or Andrew Parker posting like, oh, Jhostynxon Garcia promoted. These were his numbers in Double-A. It's the password, all this fun stuff. And it's just on the surface, those numbers aren't like eye-popping. So it's one of those things where I'm really just begging fans to not freak out about the fact that the numbers weren't ridiculous. It's very clear that they've liked everything they've seen from him. Again, with the walk rate going up, he's hitting the ball hard. He's again playing good defense. Like it's all there. It's just really some of the numbers haven't hit what they should be at the moment. And he really feels like a prime candidate for someone who will go to AAA and feast on some of that like 91 mile an hour fastball that you see a lot. I know there's a lot of that tends to be something that people bring up when you talk about a player performing in AAA. It's like, oh yeah, it's something we've seen with Vaughn Grisham a lot. People are like, oh, well, he hits the 90 mile an hour fastball well, and a lot of people throw that. I could see Jhostynxon Garcia going up there and absolutely crushing it. But outside of that, Blaze Jordan had an awesome week. He's on a 5-game hitting streak. He had multiple hits in a bunch of games. The last game of the week, he went 1 for 4, but it was a 2-run homer. I get it that there is a logjam at first base right now, so there's really nowhere for him to go, but he really feels like someone that should be in AAA sooner rather than later. 279, 382, 432 slash line. In May, he's hitting 349 with a 472 on base and a 605 slugging. So that's an OPS north of 1,000. He's got 17 walks compared to 14 strikeouts. He's walked he had 18 walks last year, so he's already just 1 behind that. That was another thing I talked about with him, just the approach and how that was something when we talked to him in the offseason, that was something he said he wanted to focus on. And I asked him, like, is it a mentality thing? Was it a mechanical change? And he said it's mentality. It's all really just about finally going up there and actually waiting for his pitch instead of being like, oh, I don't hate this pitch and swinging at it. It's like, that wasn't my pitch. I'm not going to swing at it. And it's done absolute wonders for him. He's one of those guys who I feel like every time I see him put the bat on the ball, it seems like he's hitting it consistently hard, even if it just ends up being a single or even a fly out, a ground out, whatever it is. He always seems to be hitting the ball pretty hard. Abram Liendo is one of my favorite players to watch live. He didn't do anything like spectacular this week. I think all his hits were basically like infield singles, except he had like one bloop single. But he had, in the doubleheader, he made like 3 spectacular plays in the 2 games. I beg anyone to go find them. The one is him sprinting from third base all the way to left field. He like beat Tyler Miller to the ball. It was a foul ball. He like dove over the tarp. And in the video, you can hear a fan going, wow, what a catch. Then he had like a sprawling stop at third base later in that game, where the announcers were even like, oh my God, Portland's making so many plays, and most of them have been Abram Liendo. And then in the second game of the doubleheader, he was playing shortstop, and genuinely, it might be like the best play I've ever seen live. Diving stop on like a hard ground ball in the grass, jumped up, threw the guy out at first. It was ridiculous. It was such a perfect showcase of his agility, like his quick twitch to get to make the diving play, his range to even get to it, the speed at which he got to his feet, the arm strength. It was all just beautiful. He's one of those guys that, like, the bat's cooled down. He's down to 278. He has a 350 on base, which is awesome. He's just one of those guys that the speed and defense was always going to be there. And it's still, if he ever makes it to the majors, it will be on the back of his speed and his defense. And any offensive production he gives you is a bonus. So it's nice to see that he's forcing the issue. He's playing every day now. They're throwing him at second, third, short to get him in the lineup. He's batting second a lot of the games. He did bat like eighth a couple of like 1 or 2 this week, but for the most part, he was batting second. I got to see Dalton Rogers make his Double-A debut. He was awesome. 5 innings, no runs, 2 hits, struck out 6, only walked 1. That was very impressive. I was really intrigued to see what I would see from him because we've talked about this a couple times. He really struggled last year in high A, and he got the promotion to high A in 2023 after dominating single A for a little bit. And then he was like not great. And then last year was not the jump people were hoping for. And then he dominated high A this year. So it was one of those things where I thought, well, is that a case of he's just way too advanced for high A now? Like maybe he made some improvements, but this could also just be he's now a 24-year-old with 150 innings in high A, and it was bound for him to just start dominating these. Like Greenville's got multiple 19-year-olds on their team. The top 3 in their lineup tend to be 19-year-old Franklin Arias, 19-year-old Yoferi Rodriguez, and 19-year-old Nazan Zanatello. So it's like there are other teams that have these young guys. So was it just the case of that? So for him to go out there in his first Double-A start where it would have been very excusable for him to not have a good game and to really just carve up the Somerset offense, which admittedly is not the most terrifying offenses, but still it was a very positive sign. Yordany Monegro didn't have his cleanest start. He gave up, but it still wasn't bad. He gave up 2 runs on just 3 hits in 5 innings. He only walked 1 batter. He struck out 7. He had a really good celebration this week, which I was very happy about because it was my first time getting to see Yordany Monegro live. So I was hoping he would give me a little something. And he did. He had a couple good ones. He's been phenomenal this year. The one issue I think has kind of been he's been giving up a couple too many hits. So seeing him just give up 3 in 5 innings is awesome. He really didn't get into any terrible situations. That's been something with him I've noticed a lot this year is like the first 1 or 2 innings, he seems to throw like 50 pitches. And then it's a race of, will he even get through 5 innings? So it was nice to see him not really worry about that this week. Connolly early absolutely dominated 5 1/3 scoreless innings, 2 hits, 8 strikeouts, 2 walks. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about like, oh, is Connolly early about to get called up? It hasn't happened yet. They did just promote Tyler Uberstein. We'll talk about that later. He made his first AAA start. So that makes me think Early will probably get a couple more starts in Double-A because there's really no spot for him in Triple-A at the moment, especially with, like Richard Fitz will be coming back soon, and then he'll get some rehab starts. And then there's another guy. Someone will have to go down to Triple-A. So I could see it being a little bit longer for Connolly Early before he gets that jump, but he's just been phenomenal. And then I got to talk to Jeremy Wuyellen before a start, before Saturday's game. And the night before, he had just thrown 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. So he is up to 9 strikeouts already in 5 innings in his 2 Portland outings. He's looked awesome. He throws hard. He's getting good location. And just, I'm a massive fan getting to talk to him. He was such a down-to-earth, nice guy, just like immediate smiles. Derek, I asked your question about whose pitch he would steal. It was Radis Saina's curveball is what he chose. He when I asked him what his favorite pitch was of his, he went with the cutter. He said it's the one that he feels like he can throw the hardest while maintaining location the best. And yeah, he's been so impressive this year. And getting to talk to him, he really seems like someone who I think can do what it takes to make the right steps to further his career. Because that was something that impressed me with him and Blaze. Obviously, we've talked to Blaze in the past, but neither of them shy away from like their struggles in the past or their issues in the past. Blaze Jordan talked about he talked about embracing a role as a veteran on the team, despite the fact that he's only 22, because he's had so many at-bats there. And I brought up Tristan Casas getting injured and everything. And he said, first and foremost, obviously his thoughts are with Tristan Casas. And he said, it's more about doing what he can control. Like, he didn't seem bothered by the fact that he's still in Double-A, despite putting up good numbers, despite being there for a while. He talked about just controlling what he can control, getting better. He said he still thinks there's room for improvement in multiple areas. And then Jeremy Wuyellen was very much the same. He talked about how he knows he's had issues with injuries in the past, that he knows he struggled with certain things. And I asked him about the fact that, he was in a 2021 no-hitter and a 2024 no-hitter. He was able to rattle off all the pitchers in the games and his catchers in both games without any hesitation. So that's just one of those things. I know people have seen, I'm sure everybody's seen those videos flying around of, I don't know who it is, but they'll go around and they'll ask, oh, Mike Trout, can you name the lineup that was your opening day, like the lineup in your first career start? And it was like, I asked him this with no prompt. Like I didn't warn him I was going to ask him, and he just rattled off all the names. And there were some names I think every single pitcher he named is not in the system anymore. Except for in his second one, Dalton Rogers was also part of it. And it was like Jacob Wallace, Odaner Mosqueda, and I genuinely can't remember the others. And then Eli Marrero caught the first one, which is unsurprising. Eli Marrero caught every no-hitter for a while. And then Ronald Rosario caught the other one. But he really talked about wanting to prove that when I asked him what his offseason goals were and if he felt he met them, obviously he's having a phenomenal season, 2.70 ERA in 9 appearances between the 2 levels. He gave he's happy with where he's at right now, but he knows that there's a lot more work to do. He feels like he can't give a complete answer yet because he's only thrown 16 innings. He really wants to, you can tell he wants to prove himself. You can tell he knows he's good, but he knows that there's a lot for him to do to prove himself to the team, to the organization, to the fans, to everyone. So yeah, he's someone I think fans should be excited about because he's got electric stuff from the left side. He can hit 97, 98. And he's got the right attitude for it. And it comes from a place of, I asked him, why did you go to Hawaii as your college? And he said it was the only college that offered him. And I think that that's one of those things where it's one of those adversity moments where there was one coach that believed in him. And it's one of those chips that you can put on your shoulder, and it's how you respond to that. He's not vindictive about it. It wasn't like he was like, oh, nobody believed in me and I proved them all wrong. It was like, this coach believed in me and I thank him for that, and I love him for that. And to me, that's such a good attitude to have. Is you're recognizing this struggle, you're recognizing this thing that can motivate you, but you're using it in a positive way. You're not using it in a, well, screw that guy and screw this guy. So that was, I came out of that interview very high on Jeremy Wu Yelland as a player and as a person. Big fan.
Okay. Lot to digest. I'm trying to collect myself a little bit. So on the password on Garcia getting promoted, I think definitely the idea is that he's going to get, I think him being on the 40 man like played a big factor in this, because I think that people are really not going to want to hear what I'm about to say, but I do think that now that he's in AAA and he's on the 40 man, if there's an injury to an outfielder at the big league level, the next guy up is probably Jhostynxon Garcia. Just saying.
How long do you like? If an injury happens tomorrow, it's probably not him, right? Because he hasn't played yet.
He hasn't played yet. No, but I'm just
how
saying,
long do you think he would need in AAA before that becomes the case? Like,
well,
just a week of games?
I guess it depends on how long he would be up. Also, you know what I mean? Because again, it's easy. He's on the 40 man. They don't have to DFA somebody to bring him up. So, but yeah, I do think he would need some time in AAA. But again, it's a numbers matter, and the Red Sox don't necessarily, and I could be totally wrong about that, because the Red Sox have multiple guys that they could put on the 60-day IL. I do think that Chris Murphy is probably not too far away from like a rehab assignment here coming up, but they could still put him on the 60-day IL. Obviously, they haven't put Tristan Casas on the 60-day. They haven't put Yoshida on the 60-day, so they did put Cutter Crawford on the 60-day, and then he'll be back hopefully relatively soon too. Anyway, the opportunity for Garcia in Worcester, and I know again this did come up yesterday. It was like, what does this mean? Does this mean that Roman Anthony's coming up? Whatever. If you look at the way the playing time is shaken out in Worcester, since Abraham Toro and Nick Sogard had to go up to the big leagues, Nate Eaton has played a lot of third base. Like, he's basically been the everyday third baseman. So they moved him from the outfield, and Trace Thompson's been playing center field, and Roman Anthony's been playing left field. And, Corey Rozier only really plays the corners and that kind of thing. So Jhostynxon Garcia going up is going to take away at bats from Trace Thompson, and the Red Sox don't care about that because Trace Thompson is 34 years old. So, and they don't really need him, and Trace Thompson could go latch on and play someplace else probably. So I'm not saying I think that's what's going to happen, but I will just say that like the opportunity for Garcia is to play center field every day for the Blue Sox. And I'm sure that he will play center field just as much, there as he was playing in Portland. I will also say, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about Greenville, that it's an interesting situation where I also feel like Garcia moving up was as much a part of clearing a logjam in the outfield in Greenville as it was about him getting to move up to Worcester, because suddenly, especially after the trade where Yoferi Rodriguez came into the system, Greenville had way too many outfielders to play regularly every day and have to rotate through the DH spot and all that kind of stuff. So and we'll talk about that when we talk about Greenville. And the performances this past week of Blaze Jordan and Jeremy Wu Yelland are just a reminder to everybody that you need to talk to Hunter when he comes to see you and see your team, and you should just come on the Pesky Report. The pesky bump is real, even though again, Wu Yelland already had the good outing before he talked to Hunter. But whatever.
I'd already set up the interview.
You already set it up. Yeah. There you go. All right, my narrative wins. So Blaze Jordan again, 6 for 13 this week, a homer, 2 RBI. He just doesn't have anything left to prove in Portland. I think it's just a matter of time. Maybe there will need to be one other move or something else needs to happen for him to get up to Worcester. But it's good to know that he has the right attitude about it, and it's not, it's not, who knows what's eating at him necessarily, that kind of thing. But like, he outwardly, publicly is grateful for the opportunity to play baseball anywhere. So, and then Tyler Miller had a good week at a home run. I wanted to mention, we talked about Connolly early and having another great start. On the season, his season numbers are just crazy. 188 ERA, 24 innings, 38 strikeouts, and 11 walks. I do think like it's interesting that he's only made 3 starts. Like he's pitched out of the bullpen. He obviously is like a piggyback thing. I wonder if the Sea Dogs maybe will want him to get more starts, like that, just to like have a bunch of weeks in a row of starts under his belt before he moves up to Worcester. But I do think it's a similar thing. It's a matter of time for him to be in Worcester, and then I think he will be on the fast track potentially to have a big league role sooner rather than later. And yeah, and I just wanted to shout out again, great job by Dalton Rogers in his Double-A debut. 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 5 innings. A guy who I think could be a factor, possibly more likely in a bullpen role, but like a guy who has very interesting stuff, was, a decently high draft pick, and he's somebody who earned the opportunity to get to Double-A. So that is basically all I have for the Sea Dogs.
Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely covered the pitching side of everything. I just want to continue to touch on the point that Hunter has been making now. It feels like forever, for like the last 3 weeks. Let's get Blaze Jordan in AAA. We're just gonna keep tooting that horn, because, I mean, I'll just run through the numbers really quickly this week, because then he went 6 for 13, homer, 2 RBIs, and he had a walk and just 1 strikeout. Like, I don't know how much more he needs to do. I mean, he walked 18 times last year. He's already up to 17 now, and we're not even at Memorial Day yet. And Jake brought up the point of Nate Eaton pretty much becoming the Blue Sox third baseman, and we brought up the whole first base situation. I think it was last week, and it's like, okay, but who's playing first base in Worcester? And what, Nathan Hickey and Benellis and Grissom occasionally? Like, I don't want to rehash the entire conversation we had last week, but it's at the point of like, okay, when's the time? Because if it's not now, when is it? Like, it's got to be soon, right?
Yes. And I do want to say something I did forget to mention. I thought it was just Jhostynxon Garcia, but a lot of them were wearing awesome password shirts. And I made the mistake, and I've learned now to never tweet about a shirt. I think there were like 900 bot links under my thing with fake spam links, and I was like, I'm just muting every single one of them.
It was
absurd
happen.
For
it's
like
ridiculous.
36 hours. It was just cool shirt with a very clearly fake link. I was like, no, get away from me. But yeah, I was a little upset I didn't get to talk to him. I had interviews like scheduled with a couple Spanish speaking players, and Emma Tiedemann, the Portland announcer, is the one that helped set them up. And she said the issue is she said last year there was so many people that could translate, and this year there is the pitching coach, Juan Rivera, and no one else can translate on the team. She said like last year there were even players like Marcelo Meyer could translate if you needed somebody to translate. And this year it's just Juan Rivera. So it's now you're working around the player you want to talk to schedule, the pitching coach's schedule, and then all the pitchers' schedules. Because if they need to talk to the pitching coach, obviously they have much higher priority than me. So now he's in AAA. The good news is Worcester plays in Lehigh Valley again I think this series starts June 10th. So if Marcelo Meyer is still there, I will know for a fact I have someone that can translate. But yeah, I did not get to talk to them, but hopefully someday. But yeah, the awesome shirt, and just don't tweet out links, or don't tweet about shirts, because you will get a lot of spam links, and it's frustrating.
Just missed the Alan Castro interview. We're almost there. Almost.
He was on the list.
I know.
We're
gonna get
him,
it.
Jhostynxon, and Jordani, and just didn't happen. One day we're gonna get it. Oh, also, I mentioned when I was in Reading the first week of the series or of the year, that a fan was screaming for Alan Castro, and they were yelling at Corey Rozier, and they were mad at him for not responding. And it was like, well, that's because it's Corey Rozier, not Alan Castro. This week at Somerset, there was a fan yelling at Alan Castro, calling him Juan Chacon, and yelling at him for not, and then being like, oh, why isn't he turning around? And it was like, so I'm starting to think Alan Castro is not a real person because no one seems to know what he looks like or who he is. It's very funny that it's happened to him twice now, is people confusing him for very different people, especially Corey Rozier, who is much shorter and looks nothing like him. But yeah, it's just funny that he seems to be the one that gets all the confusion thrown around.
Well, these people are not invited into the fan club.
No, they're
That's
not.
all I'll say.
No, they're not.
That's all I will say. They're not invited in the fan club. I will just also mention Castro had played in 3 games this week. He had 3 hits, including a double. So shout out. The fan club is back. We are rolling. We're getting the train has left station and we're starting to go now that he's back from injury. Fan club's starting to get the wheels rolling. We did mention Juan Chacon. He also had a couple hits this week with a double. So maybe the Juan
Chacon hit.
Fan.
He needed that.
Maybe the Juan Chacon fan club is
maybe. I hope yeah, he's a talented guy. Hope he can make things happen.
Yes. I don't have much else in Portland because I don't want to step on Hunter's toes. I know he covered a lot, which is great because he was there. But I don't have anything else, so I think it's a perfect time now. We should take the trip to Worcester. Well, technically Buffalo because they played in Buffalo. The Red Sox this past week went 3-3 against Buffalo, which is the Toronto Blue Jays AAA affiliate. And I'll just we did mention Tyler Uberstein, so I feel like we should start there. He was promoted to Worcester, and he made his first AAA start. So let's start on the pitching side of things. I'll hand it over to you, Jake. The floor is yours. What did you see on the pitching side of things this week with Worcester?
So, yeah, I did want to talk. Yeah, definitely Tyler Uberstein made his AAA debut and was really, really strong. A really well-earned promotion for a guy that has been through a bunch of stuff, has had injury, came back from Tommy John, I think, and looked really solid in Worcester or in Portland. And the promotion news came after we had recorded last week. I think it was Tuesday that news came out. And 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, 4 walks. Not lighting the world on fire, but but for your first start in AAA, couldn't definitely something to build off of. I think for him, it's surprising to see 4 walks because I do think that his command, his control has been pretty solid so far, or at least it was in Portland. So hopefully he can stick that, turn that around a little bit. On the starting pitching, other guys on the starting pitching side, Robert Stock, who has been in the big leagues for the Red Sox this year, had a 7-inning start, which you don't really see that happen that often in the minor leagues. But he had 7 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. Good outing for him as he continues to kind of be that potential minor league or major league depth. With injuries and things like that, we may get another opportunity here. I wouldn't hate to see that. And then I have to check on this because I wrote that it was a start, but I'm not 100% positive. But Brian Van Bell had a really good outing, and just wanted to double check and make sure that was in fact
it was a start.
It was a start. Okay, great. I didn't have that in the wrong column. I feel like we've seen him move back and forth between roles. Between being in the bullpen and being a starter. And this week he, didn't exactly miss a ton of bats, but 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, one strikeout and no walks. So guy who's not necessarily a hard thrower, but is somebody that I similarly think that we'll see him in the big leagues at some point here. He's just a useful guy. He's a useful guy that can give you length out of the bullpen. So, on the subject of the bullpen, I wanted to bring up, I don't have a lot in terms of the week for guys in the bullpen. There were, Wyatt Olds had 2, outings out of the bullpen. He's again up from up from Portland, 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. Few other good performances. Philip Sykes got an out, and we're going to talk about him more also. Yeah, I mean, Luis Guerrero had two outings. Zach Kelly had a good outing out of the bullpen, one inning. But I think like what I wanted to talk about was a bigger picture conversation, and this originated from I think it was the most recent Sox Prospects pod. It may have been the one before. I think it was the most recent one, and Ian and Chris were talking about the way that guys get used in the bullpen in the high minors with Portland. They were specifically talking about Portland and Worcester. And I definitely think I had noticed this, but I guess it didn't register to me how unusual it is. And what I'm talking about is the fact that if you look at the usage for a lot of guys in the bullpens, almost everybody gets asked to go multiple innings. Like guys are regularly asked to go 2 innings. Even guys that maybe don't have as much experience doing that at earlier levels, they get asked to go 2 innings, or they get asked to go 3 innings potentially, and then they don't really pitch more than once or twice a week as a result of that. I mean, I'm just looking at this past week, like Zach Kelly only threw 1 inning this past week. Luis Guerrero, I think had one outing where he went 1 inning, another outing where he went 2 innings. Isaiah Campbell had just had 2 outings. But Wyatt Olds, I'm not sure what the breakdown was, but he had two outings where he went 5 innings total. And I think that what the conversation that Ian and Chris had was about how around the game, other scouts and executives from other teams look at the way that the Red Sox handle the bullpen usage in the upper minors, and they are perplexed by it because it is somewhat erratic in terms of a guy will throw 50 pitches and then like 10 pitches the next time out, and then they won't throw for 6 days, and then they'll throw 30 pitches and that kind of thing. And there's definitely this desire to get guys to throw multiple innings. And the question is that the best way to prepare a guy to contribute in the big leagues? Because that tends to not be how big league bullpens are deployed. And have we seen maybe instances where guys have come up to the big leagues and maybe struggled a little bit because that usage is not the same at the big league level as it is at the high minors? Now, I understand the impulse on the part of the Red Sox and of any team that they view it as important that guys come out of the bullpen and be able to throw multiple innings because of the fact that starters in general just don't go as deep into games as these days as they used to. So I understand that impulse of like, yes, we want to like get these guys ready so that they can throw multiple innings out of the bullpen because that's the direction that we see the game going. But the truth is that I just don't think that, like, my belief is that I just don't know that every reliever is built to do that. And I think that if they're not, and I would agree with what Chris and Ian were saying, which is guys are going to come up to the majors and they're going to throw back-to-back nights, or they're going to throw 3 out of 4 nights, that kind of thing. They need to have that experience. They should, I think, I agree with them that they should have that experience in the minors. And if you look through the pitching usage, it's not how the Red Sox handle it. Like, you don't usually see guys throw back-to-back nights. And sometimes, for the most part, it seems like if I look at this past week, nobody in the boat, like the Woo Sox played 6 games. They played their full slate of games, and nobody pitched more than 2 games out of the bullpen. So it's an issue. And I think that there are, good questions about that. And I would be interested at some point to hear an interview with Brian Abraham or Justin Willard or, somebody, and again, this is not necessarily an issue in the low minors. I just want to be clear about that. And I agree that Chris and Ian were talking about that. Like, the low minors, like, there are so many mouths to feed. Like, you got to get these guys experience. You have to see who is who. Your starters are not going to, or just generally are not going to go as deep in games in low A and high A. So that's not what we're talking about. But we're talking really about in Worcester and Portland. And yeah, I get the desire to want guys to in the bullpen to go multiple innings, but I do think that I have noticed it, but I guess what I didn't really know until Chris and Ian talked about it is that's like unusual from a development and a deployment standpoint. So I just thought as us guys that watch a lot of these games, I wanted to just throw that out there as a discussion point.
You brought it up like before we got on. We yapped for a while before we got on today. But that was one of the things you mentioned. And I thought it was funny when you brought it up because it's something I noticed that I've noticed without noticing it, if that makes any sense. Like when I go to Worcester games at Lehigh Valley, it always annoyed me because I'm one of those guys that like if I'm in the press box, I have to fill out the scorecard because I'm like, I'm at the game. I have to do this. Like, why would I not do this? And it always seemed like, a 9-inning game, Worcester would have, 3, maybe 4 pitchers go. And the Iron Pigs would always have like 6 or 7 because they would have guys go 1 inning. Sometimes a guy would come in for 1 out in to get the starter goes 5 2/3. And then someone comes in for a 3rd inning to get that final out. And then there's a new pitcher the next inning. And it never seemed like Worcester did that. And it has annoyed me in the past seeing someone like Luis Guerrero throw a good inning, and maybe he throws a couple too many pitches. It's like, oh, he 1, 2, 3 inning, but it took him 17, 18 pitches to do it, which isn't terrible. But then it's like, and now, oh, here he comes for a 2nd inning. And it was always like, well, why are we doing this? Luis Guerrero is a very good, he's proven to be a very good pitcher in the majors. Many people keep asking, why is he still in the minors? But that does get frustrating to see sometimes. And I wonder whose philosophy it is. Like, there's been a lot of people getting angry at Andrew Bailey lately. And I wonder if this is something that he employs. Like, is this an Andrew Bailey thing, or is it a Craig Breslow thing, or is it just a Worcester thing? Not really, because it seems like all the Red Sox minor league teams do seem to do multiple innings with a lot of their relievers. Which again, it's something I've noticed in Portland where it will frustrate me because they will have a pitcher who's struggling and they'll go out and throw a clean 1 inning and then they'll come out for a 2nd and get hit around. And it's like, damn, he could have had a good outing and you could have thrown him 2 days later and let him build off of it. But I'm happy that was something that you brought up and that was something that you have been thinking about, because it's one of those things that it's been frustrating me, but I don't think if you mentioned it, I ever would have noticed what was frustrating me about it. And then I know you quickly mentioned him, but I did just want to say with Uberstein, 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts. He did walk 4 people in 29 2/3 innings. In Double A, he had only 4 walks, and then in the 5 innings, he walked 4 people. That's not that shocking. He is up against a lot more, MLB hitters. They're now you're at the point where there are going to be a lot of people who just lay off pitches. Like, at every level, there's going to be someone where it's like, oh, this guy's good at he doesn't swing. But now you're going up against a 1 through 9 where 8 of them might be good at laying off those close pitches. And I think that's going to be a really good, a really interesting battle for him, because Tyler Uberstein's not someone that throws 98, 99. He's very much more a finesse guy. And we've seen it with, obviously Shane Drohan throws pretty hard, but when he was up a couple years ago, one of the issues was that he started fatiguing and he wasn't throwing as hard. And then it was like he has to rely on his command. And we've seen it with Cooper Criswell. We've seen it with, obviously he's not at the level yet, but someone like Jhostynxon Paez and high A. So the question is always, can they make it work without throwing 97, 98? So I'm interested to see how he does and to see how good his command can be. Obviously this wasn't his best start for that, but the fact that he walked 4 people and still only gave up 3 runs, I think is a very positive thing. And hopefully he can, work on it and get better in the future, and draw fewer or give up fewer walks, and we can see where he goes from there. But not the most electric start or anything, but definitely a positive first AAA appearance for Uberstein.
Yeah, I'll just add on the relief pitcher side of things. It is interesting because you have a guy like a Nick Birdie who this week only had one appearance and he won an inning, right? So it is interesting to see the pattern of that, because I wonder if they're maybe thinking because Birdie's thrown 16 2/3 innings in 13 games, so maybe they're thinking, oh, this guy's going to be, our next guy up, so we're gonna, move him or whatever. Which obviously he did get moved up and used in the big leagues, but I wonder if it was oh, well, Birdie's our next guy up, so we're going to have him kind of go an inning. But other guys, it's let's stretch him out a little bit. Maybe I have no clue what the thing could be. I don't. To me, if you have guys, especially at AAA, I feel like you're kind of decided somewhat on if a guy's a starter or a reliever or they're a veteran, right? Because if you look at the AAA bullpen right now, and it's Kelly, Guerrero, Campbell, Mata, Adames, DeLucci, it's Austin Adams, Hoppy, Olds, right? Those guys, those are relievers. They're not going to be guys where it's yeah, they're in your bullpen, but they're going to go 3 or 4 innings out of the bullpen like you would see in the low minors. It's not going to happen. So it is interesting. Maybe they believe that it's easier for them to fit guys in terms of getting everyone outings, but you still have to play the same number of innings regardless. And you play 6 games, all games are 9 innings unless they go into extra innings. So you're going to be playing 54 innings regardless, outside of rain outs or whatever. You're playing 54 innings a week. It doesn't change any. Every single week it's the same. So I have no clue what it is. I feel like that's something that next time I go to Worcester, I might ask Chad Tracy about it.
For sure.
Probably won't get much of an answer, but let's be honest, because they're not giving away. They're not going to say. They probably won't say exactly why, but any answer would probably be nice to know. But it is interesting that that's what they're choosing.
So to me, I think this gets back to that question of development versus trying to win necessarily. And I'm not talking about trying to win in this instance, but I'm talking about once you get to Worcester, once you're one step away from the big leagues, I think there is development to be done. So guys do need to get in there and play or pitch. And I agree with what you're saying that part of the strategy is if we space guys out and do this, whatever, that means that everyone's going to get to work during the course of the week. But I do think that at AAA, there should be more of a premium put on how do we get guys ready to contribute to the big league team, when they're called upon, because they're the ones that are going to be called upon to help out. And so I just feel in my logic would tell me that the way that the Worcester bullpen is used should hew more closely to the way that the big league bullpen is used, which is guys going 1 inning, guys pitching back-to-back nights, guys pitching 3 out of 4 nights or 5 out of 7 nights or whatever, because that's what is called upon for them, regardless of kind of what. And this isn't the idea. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's necessarily the situation where it is in the big league bullpen where you have high leverage guys and you have low leverage guys, and if Worcester is winning by is winning by 2 runs in the 8th inning, they're going to go to a designated setup man, whoever that is, if it's Luis Guerrero or whatever. But again, the logic would tell me that you would want your bullpen usage to hew closely to the way that the bullpen is going to be used in the big leagues, and that does not mean that everyone's going to go 2 innings and guys are only going to pitch 2 out of 6 games during the course of a week. But yeah, I think it's a great question for Chad Tracy to at least get him on the record about it. And then I think that it would be interesting to hear from him, also knowing the fact that obviously it's not up to him. That's getting dictated to him from the front office, and what is the thought process behind it? I would really be curious.
And then offensive side question mark. Okay. A couple fun performances this week. First off, I want to big shout out to Philip Sykes. First 77 career AAA at-bats, no home runs. And then I believe it was on Friday. On Friday, his first 2 at-bats of the game, he hit home runs. not having the most productive season in AAA, but he's also, scattered at bats. So it's good to see him have a big game like that. I think it was the second home run. He was 113 miles off the bat, which was the highest exit velo in AAA for the day. So that was they were not cheap home runs. And then shout out to Worcester for both proving me right and making me look really stupid in the same week. Last week, I talked about Blaze Jordan needing to get promoted and how Alex Pinellas doesn't really play and Nathan Hickey had been struggling. They proved my point with Alex Pinellas. And I believe it was the first game of the week. He was DHing and he had 2 hits, including a home run. He only played 1 more game the entire week, and it was again DH. They really do not seem interested in playing him that much. He's having a productive season. I don't really understand why he doesn't play often, but it just does not seem like the Red Sox are too intrigued by him at the moment. And then Nathan Hickey made me look very stupid. He had a phenomenal week, including 3 homers in 3 straight games. He had the grand slam the week before, but I talked about that, how it was, even with the grand slam, he only had 2 hits in the week and he was like 2 for 30 in the month and all this other stuff. He had a massive week. Obviously the 3 homers, he had an RBI double at one point. He had a couple singles. The big thing was something I mentioned was how last week I mentioned how Nathan Hickey has always been very good at drawing walks and getting on base. So even last year when he really struggled, he was at least getting on base and he was doing something where it was like, oh, the batting average is barely 200, but he's got the 340 on base percentage. And entering this week, he had 7 walks on the entire year. And then in 6 games this week, he walked 8 times, including a game where he went 0 for 4 or 0 for 0 with 4 walks and a hit by pitch. So he was just getting on base all day that day. So this was just a ridiculously massive week for Hickey. He's up to 250, 331, 461. He's got 7 homers, 6 doubles, 26 RBIs. That's the exact kind of week he needed, I think, to kind of stave off those fears of maybe Blaze Jordan coming up and taking the bulk of his job at some point, or I should say in the near future. It's still a weird situation where Blaze Jordan, it doesn't really feel like Double A is doing much for him. But there is a legitimate, it feels like, first base option in AAA. Now, that being said, calling Blaze Jordan up, I still don't think would cause that much of an issue. He can also play third base. One's a lefty, one's a righty. Again, it really, for whatever reason, doesn't seem like they're super interested.
There's also a DH spot.
There's also a DH spot. Yeah, AAA, it's weird. They just have so many veteran guys, which isn't a bad thing. It's very good for helping the younger guys acclimate and for having that major league ready depth. We saw how important it was with Abraham Toro. You can say he hasn't been great in the majors or not, but it was nice for them to have a veteran guy who they were like, all right, this is a guy with a track record. We're in a pinch. We need someone right now. We can call him up and figure it out later. And just Jake, I thought about it when you mentioned Trace Thompson earlier. Awesome guy. I've heard from multiple people in the locker room how great of a leader he is and how much he's helped the young guys, and he really embraces that role. And he's having a solid year. But it reminded me when you said it, there was a point in spring training where certain people wanted Trace Thompson over Roman Anthony on the opening day roster. And I think that that's a very hilarious thing when you mention like, oh, Trace Thompson's 34, like he can go play for someone else at some point if he needs to. It's very funny to remember that was a legitimate talking point. But there is a clear logjam starting to happen in AAA with Roman Anthony, obviously, and Jhostynxon Garcia is coming up. And you have all those veteran guys like Trace Thompson and Nate Eaton and Philip Sykes you still want to try to get some playing time for. And Corey Rozier's had a very solid year. Tyler McDonough should be coming back soon. Again, last week when I was at the games in Lehigh Valley, he was on the field like every day before the game, just doing drills and warm-ups and stuff. So it seems like he's ramping up at the very least. And he's having a very good year now. He's someone that they can throw around kind of anywhere. So I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. But they are starting to run into a little logjam there. Roman Anthony, 9-game hitting streak, 10 for 23 with 3 doubles and a triple this week. That was great to see because in the last, in all of May before this week, he had no extra base hits. He had like 12 hits. They were all singles. So for him to get 3 doubles, 2 of them in the final game of the series, and the triple, it was good to see the power coming back after the foul ball off the shin. he's hitting 322, 446 on base, 503 slugging, 17 RBI, 31 runs scored, 3 steals. He's got 35 walks compared to 37 strikeouts. Really doesn't feel like there's much else for him to do here. But again, there's just not room for him in the majors at the moment. I know it's frustrating, and it's something with him and Marcelo Meyer that has been talked about a lot. Marcelo Meyer only went 6 for 25 this week, but he did have a very clutch 3-run homer in the top of the ninth to give them the lead. And Jake, you mentioned it on Twitter. You were asking, like, I'm interested what people's realistic moves would be to shake things up. And you got some good responses, some terrible responses, some angry people, some people genuinely interested in seeing what people have to say.
I asked for it. I don't know. At a certain point, I just stopped looking. But yeah,
and I felt bad because I felt like I kind of fueled into it almost the night before. The Red Sox had a really tough loss, and I'm still not used to having a following. Like 2 years ago, I had like 400 followers on Twitter. I'm not used to. I used to be able to just tweet things into the void, just like as a joke. Like after the game, I just tweeted, like, oh, the Red Sox lose another game and need a spark with the 2 top prospects in the minors or in baseball in AAA. And then it was like, they should call him up. And it was Craig Breslow. And it was the Nick Saban, I'm not going to do it, so quit asking meme. And it was like mainly a joke. Like I was kind of just playing it off as a joke. People did not take it that way. People agreed very heartily with it. And I'm not used to having that power of people being like, yeah, this is exactly what should happen. I'm used to tweeting something and 3 people being like, haha. And to play devil's advocate, because I agree that there's no space for them right now. As much as people want Trevor Story gone, he's a veteran on a big contract. He's a great clubhouse guy. He hustles like he's not doing anything wrong. We talked about this before we got on, how people have compared him to Pablo Sandoval because both of them were very unproductive. Pablo Sandoval was a different kind of unproductive where he was doing nothing right. The numbers were miserable. He was very out of shape. He wasn't trying hard. He was liking Instagram pictures during games. His belt broke. Like it was all just incredible. Like he was a very toxic clubhouse guy. It was one of those things where when he was gone, they probably weren't worried about the clubhouse being up in arms. With Trevor Story, I could feel it being a bad shift for the clubhouse, especially if they call up Marcelo Meyer and then Marcelo Meyer isn't immediately great. I think that there would be a lot of clubhouse veterans that would be like, we got rid of the clubhouse leader for a guy who's also struggling. And to be fair, Trevor Story did have an RBI single and a steal in the first inning of the Mets game that is currently happening. And so to me, that's the big difference is Trevor Story is a good type of veteran to have on your team. But to play devil's advocate, when I think you asked the question of like, or I shouldn't say you asked the question. You basically said like, you can't just call these guys up. That doesn't just fix everything. Speaking from myself, like when I tweeted out that joke, and speaking from, I think, a semi-decent amount of people, it's mainly frustration and it's just a way to get it out. Like, yes, I agree. The Red Sox offense has not been the issue for the most part. They've had some frustrating games, but for the most part, they've been one of the best offenses in the league. I'm pretty sure they lead the league in hits, or at least they did a couple days ago. They tend to score a decent amount of runs. Like it's not their fault that they lost the game where they scored 5 runs off Tariq Skubal, the best pitcher in the world. That's an awesome offensive game. But when you lose, 5 out of 6 games in a week, and 3 of them were 1-run losses, and 2 of them were games where you should have won, but you blew it in a bad situation. The bullpen blew it, or the offense didn't score in the 9th with guys on second, whatever it is. It's like, I'm not saying that that's definitely the right move, but it's frustration with how things are going. So I think at least some people, that is not always a serious, like, call up Roman Anthony right now or I'm leaving. I think it's more a do something, I'm getting annoyed, and oh, look, here's the top prospect in baseball, I'm just going to throw that out. Because after whatever game I tweeted that after, it was a really ugly loss. I forget what happened. It was they got walked off or something terrible happened. And it was frustration. Like there was no seriousness to it. It was just you guys are killing me. Like I've watched this team for, I'm 31. I'm about to be 32 this time next week. I've watched this team for 25 years now, or however long, like of genuine intent watching. I sat in my bedroom watching my brother, who's a Yankees fan, apologized to me when the Yankees beat the Red Sox in 2003 when Aaron Boone hit that homer. Like my brother was genuinely apologetic because it was so crushing. And my mom let me stay up in 2004 to watch all those games. Like, so don't get me wrong. The Red Sox have had much worse times than this. Like, this is not the worst of the worst. They're still putting together a competitive team. But it's like when there are these bright pieces that you hope are the future for the next 15, 20 years, and you see the team going out there and losing close game after close game after close game, it's just, it's frustration. It's excitement for what's to come. And it's the annoyance of like, here's this top prospect in the world being held back by a guy who's hitting 230 and even worse is hitting like 100 since April 15th or whatever. So I don't think it's always serious. I think it's just people venting. But there are definitely a lot of people that believe that is the right move at the time. And I think there are arguments for it. I personally don't agree. I think that the Red Sox should keep it going for a little bit longer. It's, as much as people don't want to hear it, it's still very early in the season. The Red Sox are a couple games out of first place. It's not like they're completely buried. And you just have to hope that some of these veterans who should be figure it out at some point. And mainly you hope that the pitching can work out of its issues. But I feel like I feel guilty when Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer do something, because I know when I tweet out that they did something, it is going to be just a flood of people saying like, oh, this is stupid. Why aren't they up yet? But obviously that's my job, is to keep people informed in what is happening. So yeah, I think it's a tough situation where there are potential solutions, and that's what's annoying a lot of the fan base when they see their team struggling.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think was it last week? I think I was talking with Jason. Shout out Jason. He's actually leaving for Greenville, where he's internship with the Greenville Drive. So shout out Jason. But I was talking we were talking last week, and I told him I kind of went on a rant about how now's not the time for Roman and Marcelo, and I think that, and I mean Hunter, you go out on the David Hamilton tweet, but David Hamilton has been really good since the start of May, right? Limited playing time, only 30 plate appearances, but it's been, he's got a 178 weighted runs created plus since the start of May. Very small sample size, but like, it can't hurt to play him more. I know it's not, we're not covering the big leagues, but Christian Campbell's getting some ground balls at first base. That's interesting. But I think that also maybe shows that there's maybe that if we kind of rotate it back to the Blaze Jordan discussion, maybe they're not in a rush to promote Jordan because they're not in a rush to solve the first base issue with guys in the minor leagues, because they're going with Christian Campbell potentially. So I figured I'd just connect the dots there. Maybe that's what's going on. The other thing I want to bring up, brought up Meyer, how he went 6 for 25 this week. With him also drawing 4 walks, hey, he reached base 10 times in a week. Can't complain. But then Roman Anthony just had 7 walks with his 10 hits, so he reached base 17 times this week, which was one shy of being 3 times a game. Just absurd. Roman Anthony's on base percentage this week was over 500, just for the record. So I thought that was kind of insane. Also, Nathan Hickey too. He reached base 15 times this week. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, other than that, I don't have much. Both of you guys really covered AAA. I actually don't have much else to add. The only things I had stuff on was Nick Birdie and Robert Stock on the pitching side of things, and you guys covered all the hitters I have. So I'm good to move to. I'm more than ready to move on to Greenville.
Yeah. The only note I have is just with David Hamilton, because I keep seeing, like you said, with Campbell potentially getting reps at first base. I keep seeing a lot of the whole, why is David Hamilton here? Obviously, he's been playing a lot better lately. sending David Hamilton down to call up Marcelo Meyer means that Marcelo Meyer is playing the David Hamilton role of playing once or twice a week. Like I don't think they could potentially bench Trevor Story, but I don't think that would be the case. So that's just one of those, you're not putting Marcelo Meyer in a position to succeed. And that's David Hamilton is there to play once or twice a week, come into pinch run and steal a base. He's there for his speed mainly and for potential good offensive production and decent defense at second base. It is not, he is not stealing a role away from you, one of your top prospects.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll just add to on that as well is like people might counter argue and say, well, if Campbell's going to play first base, then Meyer can play second. But it's like Meyer hasn't played a ton of games at second base. It's not that I wouldn't trust him there, but see what you have in David Hamilton, because there were moments last year where Hamilton was electric at times, right? So, and like I said, he's been playing well in the month of May. So don't be shocked that if Christian Campbell does start playing first base a lot, don't be shocked if Meyer still doesn't get called up. Don't be shocked, because I would
at least not right away, because like
not right away.
Meyer hasn't played a ton of second. I don't think they would have Christian Campbell at a new position and Marcelo Meyer at basically a new position, both in the majors. I think they would want to give them both some reps before throwing that into the equation.
Yeah. Now that could mean a call up for someone like a Vaughn Grissom, maybe. Maybe that would be a more likely first move for someone playing for maybe like a Toro, for example.
I did. Thank you for bringing up Vaughn Grissom. I completely forgot about him. I had been working on something of trying to find a potential trade partner for Vaughn Grissom, because it really kind of feels like the Red Sox just aren't interested in him anymore. Like they called up Nick Sogard. They claimed that Vaughn Grissom was going to get the majority of the reps at first base like 3 weeks ago, and he's played like 4 games there since then. They're kind of just bouncing him around the infield. And hasn't been terrible, but hasn't been spectacular or anything. And it took me a really long time to try to find someone, because at first I was trying to find like, oh, maybe a bullpen arm or something. And then I was like, no, because that would mean probably trading him to, if you're getting a bullpen arm, you're probably trading him to a bad team who has like a good bullpen guy. But then I was like, is he worth a really good bullpen arm? So then I was trying to find like a decent bullpen guy on a good team. And it was a whole thing where I ended up going with a prospect. And I was thinking a need for the Red Sox, while also not being a top prospect for another team, because Vaughn Grisham not going to get you like a top 100 prospect or anything, but still being a good prospect. And I genuinely think I absolutely nailed it. The Seattle Mariners have terrible offense from their infield outside of like Jorge Polanco. JP Crawford's been okay. Dylan Moore's been good. But then it's like Rowdy Tellez and Donovan Solano are their 2 healthy first basemen. When I wrote this article, I don't know what he's hitting now. I know it's still under 200. But when I wrote the article, Tellez was hitting 187 with 6 homers and 19 RBIs. All 3 of those stats were like grossly outperforming Solano. Miles Mastrobuoni is bringing absolutely nothing to the table as like their bench guy.
Except for a cool name.
Yes, he's got a cool name. So I was like, Vaughn Grisham could be someone that could go there, play multiple positions, and play basically every day. And he gives them a young guy who they could maybe build on and hope he improves. Meanwhile, they have one of the best catchers in baseball, or possibly the best catcher in baseball, Big Dumper Cal Raleigh. And then you go to their minors and they have their 5th ranked prospect, according to Pipeline, is Harry Ford. I'm not saying they're getting Harry Ford. But with him and Cal Raleigh, they have like potentially their catchers for the next 15 years. So you go a little further down and their number 21 prospect, Josh Caron, he was a 4th round pick in 2024. Really interesting power. He's playing solid in high A. As of May 15th, he had a 282, 341, 410 slash line. Genuine pop, really good arm, decent athleticism. So there's like hope that he can improve defensively. Only 21 years old, already in high A, which is solid. Obviously he was drafted last year. But he doesn't really have like a future there. And the Red Sox have Carlos Narvaez, who has been phenomenal. Like he genuinely seems like someone who could be their catcher for a very long time. Just based off the fact that he is an incredible defensive catcher. So anything he brings offensively is a bonus. And he's brought you a lot more offensively than anyone thought. But outside of that, like Connor Wong has been terrible. And then they have in the minors, it's like Jhostynxon Garcia is a stud, but he's been out for over a year now. You can't really, it's not a smart move to bank on him to become some great prospect again. Brooks Brannon has potential because of power and athleticism. He's improved nice defensively this year, but he's also struggled in high A. And then outside of that, it's like Ronald Rosario's okay. Enderso Lira is just like gone. Andrew Musette has been solid in single A, but like outside, it's really been like one really productive week and then decentness going along. And I just thought that this would make sense for both teams. The Mariners are giving from a position of absurd depth. Like there's a genuine chance they trade Josh Caron at some point anyway. They don't need a catcher. And the Red Sox are getting rid of someone who I still believe in. He's still young. He's shown a decent amount in the majors. But they don't seem to, it seems like he's really fallen out of favor there. There's a log jam. He clears up a 40-man spot. It feels like it's a move that they're going to make at some point. And if they do, I think that they should give me a call and look into Josh Caron, because I think that actually makes a ton of sense for both teams.
Well, just for the record, not that we care what they say, but Baseball Trade Values is down with it. So not that we care what they say, but just for all the people who do care, slap it in your face. Maybe if you have to chuck a little bit of cash considerations on top, just here's some cash. Make the trade, Seattle. I'm down with that. I like that idea, actually. With that, though, we will. It is a good time. We will take the move to Greenville, and I think the most reasonable starting place is Zach Ehrhard. He went 9 for 19 this week, had a homer, 8 RBIs, 3 walks, and just 2 strikeouts. And the big news is he's getting a promotion to AA, and he'll be on the same team as his brother, which is a nice little fun thing to have. I'll keep it short before I hand it off to one of you two. But I will say on Ehrhard, one, I call the Red Sox drafting him. I will always bring that up. Have to bring it up. But he has had a very, 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 very good year. I mean, 342, 471 on base is the real one. 26 strikeouts. No, sorry, 26 walks to just 27 strikeouts. And then a 459 slugging percentage. Last year, he played 22 games in Greenville. This year, he played 31. He did struggle in his 21 games last year. I mean, it's kind of evident by the fact that he did strike out 25 times in those 22 games. This year, he's only struck out 27 times. But he also was coming off playing at Oklahoma State. He played 61 games there. And he had just been drafted, going to Greenville. So him kind of coming into this year, putting up those massive numbers, like I just kind of stated, I think it was really, really impressive in a crowded, very crowded outfield where there are a lot of potential options to receive promotions some point this year in that outfield, whether it be Nelly Taylor or Miguel Blaze or Yoferi Rodriguez at some point. Ehrhard being the first one. Even though he's probably the least recognizable name, if you were to just ask a general Red Sox fan who's not super crazy about the minor leagues like we are, it's still a very well-deserved promotion. I do want to get your thoughts on it, Hunter, and also Jake as well, on just kind of the promotion for Ehrhard.
Jake,
I think Hunter's ceding to me.
Yes.
So Ehrhard, I think, has just been so good. I just don't know that he should have been in. If everything worked out, he probably should have started the year in Portland in the first place. It just was based off numbers, like who was going to fit in where, whatever. And then I think that like between the trade for Yoferi Rodriguez and just like his start in general, it just was not going to be, there was not going to be a lot of time in Greenville for Ehrhard. 342, 471 on base start the year. I mean, that's ridiculous. So in this week he hit his first homer of the year. He had not hit a home run until this week. But yeah, 9 for 19 with 2 doubles. Really good, really good. Just a solid overall player. I think that the higher this guy goes up in the system, and now that there'll be more eyes on him because he'll be in Portland, I think the more people will love will love what this guy brings to the table. And certainly with Garcia moving up, with Jhostynxon moving up to Portland, great opportunity for Ehrhard. And yeah, it will be fun to have him to have the Ehrhard brothers together in Portland. It's always fun when the brothers get to play with each other. And it's one thing that kind of makes me a little bit sad about the Garcia situation, where it's like, Johan Fran, I think going into last season was really considered a better prospect than Jhostynxon. They were both in Salem together, and Johan Fran blows out his knee, and then Jhostynxon goes on this meteoric rise. Basically within a year, he goes all the way up to Worcester, and we haven't seen Johan Fran back on the field again. And when he does get back on the field, I'm sure he'll be at FCL first, but then he'll be in Salem. So it is kind of crazy how those things like that happen and work out. But and then the other news from Andrew Parker was Marvin Alcantara getting moved up as well to Portland from Greenville. Again, good opportunity for him with opportunities in the infield in Portland because of obviously there's Mikey Romero is there, and Abram Leendo, who we've talked a lot about, has had a good start to the year and plays good defense. But Alcantara will get the chance to move around and play a few different spots. Had kind of a down week, but this past week, and I think he'd had like a little bit better numbers earlier in the year, but I think again, numbers game. We talk about the crowded outfield for Greenville. I guess there kind of was a crowded infield a little bit too. So it will be good for especially Antonio Anderson, who had a really good week this past week. He was 6 for 19 with a homer, 3 RBI. Guys like that will get more of an opportunity because of those other guys moving up. So good things all around for especially Marvin Alcantara was a guy that I feel like came in a few years ago, like when he went to FCL and stuff. Like he was a more highly rated, highly touted prospect. I feel like he was one of those guys that was like you'd see random lists sometimes where he would be in like top 10 or top 12 or something like that in the Red Sox system, and he's never really been that guy with like getting a lot of attention. But he's just a solid all-around infielder. He can do a lot of different things, and it'll be similar to Ehrhard. It'll be good to see him get more eyes on him in Portland.
He's like you said. It was a really strong start to the year. He's cooled down a little bit, but he gives you versatility. He can move around. He's got good speed. So it'll be interesting to see. One, how he plays in Portland, and two, how they utilize him, because I don't want to say there's a log jam there, because there's days where it's Max Ferguson or Carson Simas playing second. Sometimes it's Abram Leendo, Tyler Miller, Mikey Romero, Blaze Jordan can all play third. So there's a lot of people that can move around. So I think that'll help. As for Ehrhard, so he snapped. So the first game of the week this week, he snapped a 13-game hitting streak, and now he's already on a new 4-game hitting streak. That 5-for-5 game was the same, or the game where he hit a home run, his first professional home run. He also went 5-for-5 with 5 RBIs. He's just been an absolute menace, and this felt very much like you said. He was someone that, if everything fit right, he probably could have started the year in Double-A. But it was good to see him. I think this will end up being good for him, getting some extra reps in High A and getting to just dominate. There's always that thing of like, oh, there's nothing for them to do at that level anymore. But I think it's also not really a terrible thing to have this 1 month stretch in a level at the start of the season where any issues you had, you get to iron out and everything. And like, this was the early potentially like, oh, I have these things to work on, Zach Ehrhard. And if he was in Double-A, maybe he really would have struggled with some of those things. And now he got to fix everything in High A and still dominate. And now he gets to go into Double-A with just firing on all cylinders. It will be fun to see him and Drew Ehrhard get to play together. That's always a fun thing. Like you said, it sucks that we didn't really get to see that with the Garcia brothers much. And now Jhostynxon's gone so high up that it's nearly impossible to ever expect Johan Fran to catch up with him unless they both end up playing in the majors together. Antonio Anderson, he's got a 5-game hitting streak. It was a massive week for him after struggling the first 2 weeks or the first week in high A, 2 weeks or week, whatever one. Ferry Rodriguez had a good week. He was like 0 for his last forever. He went 6 for 18 with 7 walks this series. He's got a 198 average, but he is 370 on base, stolen 5 bases. He's driven in 9 runs. He's got 28 walks compared to 23 strikeouts since joining Greenville, which is phenomenal. There's a reason he's consistently put in the number 2 hole or the top spot. Obviously at a level like Greenville, they kind of just have these set spots for people. It's more an indication of how the organization views them in importance more than it is, this guy's playing real well, let's bump him up, which is why it was so interesting to me when someone like Abraham Liendo moved up. That told me that the organization was liking what they were seeing and there was a higher belief in him. But yet Greenville has had some very strange weeks offensively lately. They won the one game, they scored 12 runs, and then like the next day they got like 1 hit. And that's kind of been something they've been doing a lot lately, is getting 1 or 2 hits in a game. So it was nice seeing them be a little bit more consistent this week. Obviously they still had some of those bad games, but that's going to happen again. I mentioned it a lot earlier in the show. They have the guys hitting 1, 2, 3 in their lineup tend to be 3 19-year-olds in high A. So there's going to be those games where things aren't clicking. And Zach Ehrhard has been one of those guys that's really helped stop that from happening. So it will be interesting to see how the lineup looks with him out of the lineup. He was definitely one of the big, I don't want to say veteran bats because obviously he doesn't have a lot of time, but he was a college guy. He had a little bit more experience with stuff like that. So he was kind of the guy that, he was able to slow the game down for everyone else, and it helped the whole offense get moving. So I'm intrigued to see what the offense can do without him. And I'm intrigued to see, they keep making promotion, like these flurry of promotions. And every time it's always felt like, Zach Ehrhard still needs to move up. Or, obviously we still talk about Blaze Jordan, but there keeps being these, who's the next guy on the totem pole? And for me, it's got to be, we'll talk about him in a minute, but Fraley Encarnacion should probably be moving up to high A soon. But while he's not there, I'm interested to see how this changes the whole dynamic of the team, because they had too many outfielders. It basically got to the point where it seemed like one of the 4 outfielders, Ferry Rodriguez, Nelly Taylor, Miguel Blaze, Zach Ehrhard, one of them had to DH every day because it was very hard to not have them in the lineup. And now you can have all 3 of them in the outfield. Obviously, someone like Colby Johnson maybe gets a little bit more outfield run. But there has been that logjam in the infield, and obviously moving Marvin Alcantara away helps. But it still feels like there will be promotions to high A, and that feels like something that will happen after this podcast, which will be annoying. But now there was a little bit less of a logjam in the outfield, so it gives them a chance to get someone DHing more often from the infield. So maybe that won't be as much of an issue moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you on Hunter. I don't have anything else on the hitting side of things. Jake, you have anything? All right, we're good to. I do want to touch on the pitching side a little bit. John Holobet's made it. Was this Greenville debut, right? I'm not
second.
The second. Second.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was the second, but I wasn't 100% sure. But he went 6 innings, only giving up 2 hits and just 2 runs. Only 3 strikeouts, but overall a solid appearance, I think, too. Going 6 innings in Greenville, that's a nice sign. Also shows that he was pretty efficient with his pitches, considering they're not going to let you go 6 innings for no reason. And then we mentioned it before. I think we mentioned it slightly before we started recording, but Eduardo Rivera just having another really solid start. He went 5 innings with no hits, no nothing. Just everything is a 0 except for the walks and strikeouts. Just 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, no hits, no runs, no hit batters, nothing. And actually, I'm trying to look right now, see look what his numbers are for his last 4 or 5 starts.
I mean, just look at his season numbers, man. 106
his
ERA,
season numbers as a whole.
91 batting average against is absurd.
Oh no, it absolutely is. But his last couple, he's starting to stretch out more too, because his first appearance on April 16th, he went 2 innings, gave up a run. Then he went 2 2/3, only giving up no runs and only 1 hit. Then he made his first start on April 29th, 3 1/3, 2 hits, no runs. Then on May 6th, he went 4 innings, only gave up 1 hit with just 1 earned run. And then May 13th, which was this past week, 5 innings, no hits, no runs, and just nothing but the 2 walks with 6 strikeouts. So every start, he's kind of getting he's getting deeper into the game, but it just continues to kind of show how good he is. And this is someone who, the Red Sox, I don't know what the Red Sox are internally feeling about him, but I think when you look at this in terms of with all the other guys in the rotation, I feel like he's a name that maybe might potentially get a little bit lost when you have Tolle and Clark and Valera all there, and even I know Paez is on the injured list now, and Garcia is as well per Sox prospects. But so I don't know what their internal feeling is compared to those guys, but he's very much holding his own, which is in a rotation that is so talented. When you see another guy that it maybe wasn't as expected of him to kind of be this, kind of have be the revelation. That's the word I was looking for. The revelation that he has been, considering that he was acquired just last year as a minor league free agent. That's it. I feel like it's saying something, especially too, which, not to crap on the team that released him, but it was the Oakland A's. And Lord knows the Oakland A's can use all the help they can get, right? Clearly the Red Sox saw something last year in Salem. He looked good. Pitched in winter ball in Puerto Rico. Looked really good then. He had 39 innings in winter ball with a 1.15 ERA. So basically, since he's joined the Red Sox system, it's been a sub-2 ERA just consistently outside of his 4 appearances in the FCL. He had a sub-2 ERA in Salem last year, 1.99. Sub-2 ERA in winter ball, and now he's got a sub-2 ERA in Portland. I mean, not Portland, Greenville. Jeez, my brain's fried. But overall, so I feel like that's someone who, if you haven't, what's the way to put this? If your head hasn't been turned by him now, maybe you haven't been totally paying attention, or you've been more focused on guys like Tolle or Valera or whoever it is. I feel like now's the time to really start watching Rivera start, especially now that he just had his first 5-inning start. It seems like he's going to continue to start. Each of his last 3 appearances were starts. So I think that he's going to be someone to really kind of keep your eyes on as we kind of get through the end of May and into June, because it seems like he's fully now ingrained into the rotation.
I feel like we need to have some kind of a nickname for Tolle, Clark, and Rivera, but I don't know what it is yet. It'll have to come to me.
The 3 Musketeers, I don't know.
Well, it's got to be.
Now you're leaving out Juan. Now you're leaving out Juan Valera, though.
Well,
yeah,
but it's specifically that they're all left-handed. That's what I mean. I'm not trying to leave out, not trying to leave anybody out, but it's just the fact that there's these 3 lefties, especially Tolle and Rivera are both just monsters, massive human beings.
Yeah.
Brandon Clark's not small or anything, but he's probably 6'2", 6'3". He's not. But Rivera and Tolle are just absolute giant human beings. And it's funny, it's interesting to me how there's similarities in the arsenals too, where it's for Tolle and Rivera, where it's Rivera's not a super hard thrower, he's up to 95 kind of, but it's that same thing as that Tolle has, where he's so big, he's just on top of you right away, and so the fastball, the action is so much different. But I don't know. And yeah, Tolle and Clark both didn't really have great starts this past week, but yeah, Rivera got the spotlight, which was nice because we've spent so much time talking about Tolle since he moved up to Clark since he moved up to Greenville and Tolley as well. So it's just nice to be able to that somebody else got a little bit of that spotlight this week. And it's super exciting. And hope that definitely people hopefully they pay attention to him and what he can do. But 28 strikeouts and 7 walks in 17 innings is not too shabby.
Just to clarify, Brandon Clark is 6'4", 220 according to Sox Prospects.
So he's pretty big too. So so that's 3 huge lefties. All right, we'll come up. Give us your ideas. Send us that might be my prompt for this week instead of getting 8,000 ridiculous responses about how to fix the Red Sox.
You'll get 8,000 ridiculous.
The Gigantors.
How do you? No, it's got to be like a play on them being left-handed. Like that's got to be involved.
There's nothing. I can't. What word that means massive person starts with an L.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, or people will.
First off, large starts with L.
but large is lame.
Well, that starts with L too.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, we're not calling them lame.
No.
But yeah, it's you guys both kind of touched on it already, but it's shocking that the A's kind of seemingly gave up on him. I mean, the Red Sox picked him up as a minor league free agent. And the overall numbers were not great with Oakland, but he really didn't get much of a chance. Like his 2024, he threw 2 2/3 innings in single A, 0 ERA, and then he moved up to high A, and in 8 1/3 innings had an 11.88 ERA, and then they released him. Like that's 8 1/3 innings. That's not a lot of time. And the Red Sox picked him up, and he looked phenomenal in single A. Obviously, he's been amazing in high A this year. And obviously it's early. Obviously it's very low in the system. Like high A, there's still a mountain to climb to get to the majors. But you feel like the A's have to already kind of be like, man, what were we like? Just releasing him is just shocking to me. He was 21 at the time of the release. He's 21 now. So he might have been 20. His birthday's in June. I don't know exactly when he got released, but it felt like a overreaction. Maybe there's something we don't know about. Maybe there's something they didn't like about him, his game. Maybe they saw something. Sox Prospects does say like he's seen a tick up in his velocity since signing. So as much as Andrew Bailey and his system have been crapped on for the last couple weeks, that is something it seems like every single person that comes to the Red Sox, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, they went from a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Like it seems like a lot of these guys are jumping up in velocity. And according to Sox Prospects, he's reportedly topped out at 99. I haven't seen that. But also, I don't get the numbers they get. Like they're a frustrating amount of high A games do not show the radar gun. I always try to pay attention to it when I do see it. I've seen mainly like 93, 94. It seems like he throws a lot of his like slider sweeper, which is like 86. That looks like a really good pitch. But like Jake said, he's very similar to Peyton Tolley. He's massive. Tolley's listed at 6'6". He's listed at 6'7". So that's just one of those things where it's like you have a lefty who can top out at 99 apparently. And even if he's not topping out at 99, he can sit at 94, 95 pretty regularly. And he's massive. So, he's got like this good extension. 99 from a lefty is terrifying already. When it's coming from a guy that big with that extension, like that really has to be just terrorizing hitters, especially at the high A level. So it does feel like the Red Sox maybe found a diamond in the rough. They really might have found something that's really intriguing. And like both of you said, it's nice that he gets the spotlight this week because he's had a lot of good performances recently, but this was his first time going 5 innings. This was the first time where he's pitched in a week where Peyton Tolley and Brandon Clark didn't do something ridiculous where it was like, oh, well, we have to talk about Peyton Tolley. So it's good to see him get that spotlight that he's definitely earned basically all year. And then just the other guy I want to touch on quick is Noah Dean. 4 2/3, 3 hits, 1 run. He did walk 5 guys, only struck out 3. But it was his second straight start of allowing just 1 run in 4 2/3 innings. The timeout before that, 4 2/3, 1 run on 2 hits, only 1 walk, 9 strikeouts. It's kind of it's a good version, but it's kind of like that thing we've talked about with him in the past where a couple really bad outings hurt his overall numbers. I think it was last year he had like 4 or 5 outings where he threw like 5 no-hit innings. But then he would have like a couple 2 innings, 6 walks, 7 runs, and they made the numbers look not as good as they are. This year he had one where he just went 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 2 runs. And then another one on May 2nd, 3 innings, 4 runs, 3 hits, 2 walks. And outside of that, he's been phenomenal. 4 innings, no earned runs, 3 innings, no runs or hits. The 2 4 and 2/3 innings games that I just talked about. He's got a 3.60 ERA, 171 batting average against, 140 whip. So the whip's still a bit of an issue because of the walks, but he's still that same Noah Dean who throws really hard, who doesn't give up hard contact, he's good at missing bats. It's the more we see of him, especially at high A, obviously, hopefully he moves up at some point, but like outside of a single A level where there's so many other variables, there's just a lot of guys that shouldn't be there. I know Sox prospects have talked about it this year, how single A is worse than it's ever been. Like there's just a lot of guys that should not be in professional baseball that are in single A. And it's a big issue because of, especially with like low A not being a thing anymore. But we're seeing him do it at a level where he's going up against a lot of genuine talent. The more you see of him, the more it really feels like this is someone who can be a guy. I don't know if it's a starter. I think he'd have a very good role as a bullpen guy in the majors in the future. Just a lefty that can come in and throw 97, 98, and just rack up a ton of strikeouts. So I'm very happy with what we've seen from him this year. Again, he's had a couple of those not great outings, but he hasn't had like a terrible blow up outing yet, which is nice to see. Like those couple games where things were getting away from him, he didn't let it get too ugly. And yeah, just another good week. The walks were an issue, but he limited the damage, and and as ridiculous as it sounds, because obviously you want him to strike a lot of people out, it was nice to see him limit the damage without it just being strikeouts. It was him getting a double play ball or him getting a weak pop up. He was doing it in different ways where it wasn't just, oh, well, he got someone to swing at 3 bad pitches because it's high A baseball. So yeah, there's Peyton Tolley, Brandon Clark, Juan Valera. Those are going to be like the big names. Juan Valera did not pitch this week. Or no, he did. I'm sorry. He did right at the beginning of the week, I believe. He just did not have a great game. But like those are going to be like the big name guys at the level. But there are other guys, and it's nice to see Eduardo Rivera and Noah Dean step up this week when they needed good performances from starting pitchers.
Definitely. Jake, you have anything else on the pitching side of things? Nope. All right. Well, we are past the hour and a half mark, which means it is a good time to get to Salem, so we can try and stay on a 2-hour pace. Although we'll probably inevitably go over. So let's move on to Salem, and I think we probably should start with Justin Gonzales once again. I think, Hunter, you mentioned it last week. He's not. I don't know if he really is 6'7" or if he's 6'90. Based on how he's around everyone else. But he had 7 hits this week. He had 7 for 22, had a couple RBIs, and just 3 strikeouts in his 22 at-bats this week. It feels like he's starting to really kind of get acclimated into Salem. How do you guys feel about his week this week?
I'm just waiting for him to hit the first home run. Like I can't wait. And it's hard. It's hard in Salem to hit home runs in general. It feels like almost unfair to have this guy that has like this massive power potential having to play his home games in Salem. And they did, they, as a team, they only hit 3 home runs this past week, and 2 of them were by Calvin Diaz. So, but I'm definitely, it's hard not to be, pleased with his ability to put the bat on the ball. The fact that, this past week he only struck out 3 times. Justin Gonzales did, 7 for 22, like you said. You can tell that he is hitting the ball with authority, but it's not his, the adjustment to the playing an affiliate ball and traveling around. And I think the thing that we have to remember about a guy like Justin Gonzales is that he's so young, and this is his first time living in the United States. He's living in Salem, Virginia, which is a lot different than the Dominican Republic. Like, so like there are so many things that guys have to deal with that they have to get used to and acclimated to. And I'm sure that like playing baseball, playing the games, hopefully for them is like the easy part, but it's also where there's the most pressure for them to perform. So I think that I really look forward to when Justin Gonzales hits his first home run in Salem. And it's like we've seen little bits of it. Like we saw stuff from a little bit from DSL last year. We saw a bit in spring training. There was, of course, that home run that he hit like after the game like technically ended. So we have there is some video evidence of him hitting home runs, and stuff that's happened on the backfields and things like that. But there's so much to be excited about with him. But like even if he struggles a little bit here and there, you just kind of have to remember that like this is a very young teenager who is acclimating to life living in a foreign country and has a lot of pressure on him. And I'm really excited for him. And then, just other guys offensively, like Yoel Cespedes, Framey De Leon, and Fraley Encarnacion all each had 7 hits on the week. And I mentioned Kelvin Diaz. I feel like Framey De Leon is somebody that just was like this, like another one of these guys that was very heralded when we first heard about him when he was coming out of DSL and that kind of thing, that just he's like gotten very kind of like lost in the shuffle. But as guys kind of move up, I think he'll get more of an opportunity, hopefully, to show what he can do. He's not a good athletic player and can do a lot of different things. But it was nice to see him have like a 7-hit week.
Yeah, this was a good week for him. He started the year in high A, obviously. And just had nothing going on for him there. Wasn't playing a ton, was struggling when he went back down to single A, struggling there for a little bit. And again, that's got to be something that messes with you mentally. Like you're getting demoted as much as the team probably tries to frame it to him in a different way. Like I'm sure the player sees it as I'm getting demoted to single A. So it's no surprise that he struggled for a little bit. It was nice to see he had a 3-hit game. Obviously you said the 7 hits on the week. He's so good defensively. He's fast. There is a lot he brings to the table. With Justin Gonzales, we talked about him last week. Despite not putting up good numbers, I think he was like 2 for 19 or something like that. We talked about like how impressive he was outside of the numbers. There were a lot of good swings. He wasn't striking out a lot. He had a couple that should have been home runs that like the wind knocked one down that I think it was like 107 off the bat with a 30-degree launch angle. Like he had some really well hit balls. And this week was just more of the same until the last 2 games where he had back-to-back 3-hit days. But it was more of the same of like the breakout very much looked like it was coming. It looked like he was a very, very, very young player, just dealing with some issues and learning, but also still doing the right things, and just you were waiting for it to work out for him, and it worked out for him in the last 2 games. Again, back-to-back 3-hit days. He hits the ball so hard. He looks comfortable at the plate. The swing looks good. Everything's there. Like for someone that size, you wouldn't be shocked if the swing looked a little choppy or whatever, especially at his age. It looks smooth. It looks good. Again, the fact that he doesn't strike out a ton, that's the big thing with someone his size, is the fear of the swing and miss, and the strike zone is going to be so large, and we haven't seen those issues for him yet. I'm still intrigued to see if he gets playing time more playing time at first base. Obviously, that was like his main position last year. They've seemed really content on keeping him at center, which makes sense. Obviously, that's a much better position for a prospect that, for so many different reasons, that just looks better. But this is a team that could use first base prospects, and he has time at the position. But I do think that he'll probably mainly stay in center for the most part. I could see them throwing him at first every once in a while, but it's one of those situations, I think, where people might get frustrated because the Red Sox have so many outfield prospects. But this is also an 18-year-old who's just starting in at single A. Like, this isn't a 2025, 2026 Red Sox problem. This is something where it's like maybe in maybe late 2027, if you're lucky, there's a chance of being like, oh man, what do we do with Justin Gonzales now? But yeah, good week for him. Really good week for Yoelis Cespedes. He's on a 5-game hitting streak. Very rare pinch hit opportunity yesterday. That is not something you see often in the minors, especially in single A. But with the team down 1, I think it was in the 9th inning or in the 8th. I think it was top of the 9th. He pinch hit for, I want to say it was Yosender Asensio, but I could be wrong. And ended up getting an RBI single to tie the game up. I thought that was a really cool moment. Obviously, it sucks for the player getting pinch hit. Like, you're in the minors. The hope is that, I'm going to get these reps in these situations. But Yoelis Cespedes is one of the top prospects in the system. It was cool to see him get pinch hit for in what was, I'm assuming, supposed to be an off day for him, and come through in a clutch situation. He's up to a 254 batting average, 302 on base, could use some work. Like, he's not drawn a ton of walks, 421 slugging percentage. But he's genuinely, like, this is a guy that for a very long time was struggling to start the year. And I wouldn't have been shocked if there was a worry that it would get worse when Franklin Arias got called up, because that was a big protection in the order for him. But instead, he's risen to the occasion. It looked very much like it was, hey, this is a guy who missed the end of last year. You know, he got promoted before Franklin Arias and didn't play for the last few months of the season. And now he's finally getting his first taste of single A, and he's a young guy. Like, it's not surprising that he struggled to start. So it's good to see him clearly getting back on track. And then I mentioned him earlier, Frelian Encarnacion probably shouldn't be in single A much longer. 284, 320, 546 slash line. The only thing you could really bring up with him negatively is he's got 4 walks compared to 35 strikeouts. That's a very clear problem, and maybe why he's being held back in single A at the moment, despite playing there all last year, and despite leading all of the Carolina League in doubles with 11 and homers with 8, and he's second in RBIs with 27. So, like, maybe that's the thing, is they're telling him, like, hey, we need you to cut down on the whiff. We need you to draw some more walks, work counts better. But I mean, it's really hard to justify it when this guy's hitting everything 150 miles an hour. But he's and I mean, with I mentioned it, with the promotions of Alcantara and Drew Ehrhard, there are going to, I'm assuming, be promotions to single A, and Frelian Encarnacion feels like a very prime candidate to get moved up. He can play first, he can play second, he could play third. I don't think he's played short this year, but he had in the past. So there's a very clear candidate for a promotion sometime in the next week. If that happens, if it doesn't happen, I would bet the house on it being them wanting him to work on the strikeouts and the walks, because everything else has been above and beyond what you could have expected from him.
Yeah, the only other thing I kind of have to add, I do want to just kind of run through a couple stats from the week. Starlin Nunez had 5 hits this week with only 3 strikeouts. He did walk twice. So the Salem Red Sox had 4 players with 7 hits, kind of already covered basically all of them. But Cespedes, Frammy De Leon, Frelian Encarnacion, Justin Gonzales were the 4 guys with 7 hits. Kelvin Diaz chucked in 5 hits this week with 2 home runs, which was already mentioned. And then MiLB had 4 hits as well, with a couple of doubles as well. That's all I have on the offensive side. On the pitching side of things, does anyone want to help me with names here?
No.
Nope. Rather watch you struggle.
You're on your own.
Local kid, whatever his last name is. I'm
Sprague.
Sprague. Thank you, Jake.
This is okay. They don't even have a pronunciation on Sox prospects because it's such a common name.
What
was not common to me?
Sprague before?
What were you going for? Is my question.
Sprague.
Sprag?
That's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not great.
At least I wasn't going Sprague like it's some rhymes with ragu. Like, it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. He's right. It could have been.
There was you guys probably don't remember him, but there was a third baseman for the Blue Jays who very briefly played for the Red Sox, whose name was Ed Sprague. He was on the world champion teams he was like the third baseman for the Blue Jays when they won the back-to-back World Series in 92.
Can't remember it. It wasn't alive, Jake.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not an uncommon name. And Ed Sprague came.
Because one person.
Ed Sprague was so I was like, I don't know how old I was when Ed Sprague was on the Red Sox. I was probably like 10 or 11. He was so bad, like he was so terrible.
There's two different Ed Spragues.
Right, so his dad played in the big leagues too. But Ed Sprague was so bad on the Red Sox, my nickname for him was Dead Sprague. When I was like 10. I thought it was the most clever thing I'd ever come up with in my life. When did Ed Sprague play for the Red Sox? It was
nothing better than a kid thinking their joke is the
before I was
joke
born. So,
well, he played.
Because Baseball Reference said he
it was 2000. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he hit 216 in 33 games. He kind of like came in when it was probably one of the 8,000 times that John Valentin got hurt. But yeah. Anyway, Sprague.
I'll get it eventually.
Okay, it's not that. It's
will
not
you?
that difficult to say. Yeah, will you?
Hey, I got Jhostynxon Garcia eventually.
There you go. Yeah.
Not really. No, what was Mark Colesbury was the real one. That was the real challenge. That was the real challenge. I got it eventually. But Sprague went 5 2/3 innings. He only gave up 4 hits, just 1 run. Only 4 strikeouts. I felt like there wasn't a ton of strikeouts in Salem this week. But 4 strikeouts is still fine. He only walked 1, so not giving up any free passes and no hit batters as well. Want. Unfortunately, that 1 walk would have been a hit batter. Could have been cool. Could have gone on my whole hit batter rant and whatever, but nope. But he's continuing to have. It feels like now he's kind of just having very consistent, good start after good start, which is nice to see. And obviously, we've mentioned it countless times, so I don't want to just continue to say it. But local kid, start, like, if you're not on the bandwagon now, get on it. And in his last 4 starts, he's got a 1.31 ERA in his last 4 starts.
I'm sorry,
20 2/3.
Whose bandwagon are we going on?
Get on the bandwagon of. Gosh darn it.
Sprague.
Just remember how you were gonna say it and know that was the wrong version of it. You're good.
The issue is I remember what's wrong. I don't remember what's right. That's the issue. But Sprague, his last 4 games, his last 4 appearances, 20 2/3 innings. He's given up 14 hits, but only 3 earned runs. All 3 of the runs were earned, so no like wild unearned runs there. Just the 3 earned runs. But I think the big thing is only walked 2 guys and he struck out 24. He also has hit 2, so I mean maybe he's starting to kind of get into the I might as well just hit him if I'm going to walk him anyways. Predict the future. But I don't know. I have no clue if you meant to say anything, Jake, but you were muted.
I thought I had clicked that it came off me, but I didn't click hard enough. I said it's not a thing.
It's gonna be a thing.
Maybe it can be a thing.
It's gonna be a thing, even if it's only my thing. But no, hitter's only hitting 192 off him in his last 4 appearances as well. So he's just been very solid, and there's kind of no other way of putting that. And then I don't know. I don't have any other guys who started a game this week to talk about. So I don't know if we actually want to talk about someone who actually started a game. But I don't have anyone who started a game written down on my list. So
no, he had kind of the best or most interesting start.
I don't even think. Did he start or did he come out of the bullpen? I think I had it down that he came out of the bullpen.
He came out of the bullpen.
Oh, he did come out of the bullpen. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. Well, if we can talk about someone else, I guess I kind of just realized that this week, was it this week? No, it wasn't this week. Never mind. We haven't seen a lot of Nicholas Giudice, and he did pitch this week, although he only pitched a third of an inning. He's kind of the forgotten guy in the Verdugo trade. And he's been coming back from injury. He's a really interesting guy. He's another big guy. He's 6'8". He is 24, so it's kind of have to figure out what's going to happen with him. But I just know that I saw his name pop up that he did pitch this past week. Again, he only went a third of an inning. He had 2 walks and a strikeout. or actually no, he hit two guys. He hit two guys. He had a walk and a strikeout. Again, I don't think that's what he was going for. So I hope we get more of a chance to see what he can do, because there was some buzz about him when he came over in the trade. But obviously, Weissert and Fitz have both pitched in the big leagues, and Judice is kind of the other guy, and we just haven't really seen a lot of him. So hopefully he gets more of a chance.
He's struggled this year. He's made 5 appearances, 3 innings, only given up 4 hits, but he's walked 16 batters. That's obviously not going to cut it. That is over 5 batters an inning, which is absolutely terrifying. So yeah, there's very clear stuff there. It's just, if you're not hitting the strike zone, it doesn't matter what you're throwing, because
may I present Helcris Oliveras?
That was a fever dream.
Yeah.
There was like a 2-month stretch where Helcris, he had like a 1 ERA while having more walks than innings pitched, and he had like 9 hit batters. ERA. There was a point where he had like 7 balks. I saw him live, and he had 3 balks in a game live. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, because he had a 3.50 ERA in 36 innings with the Sea Dogs, but he had 50 walks to 47 strikeouts, 9 hit by pitches, and 6 balks, which is absurd.
Yeah.
And now he's pitching in AAA this year for the Giants AAA team, where he has a 5.40 ERA in 10 innings with 7 walks, surprisingly.
All right, there you go.
But also 3 hit batters. 3 hit batters still, though.
Yeah.
I will just make a point of, if I'm in MLB The Show and I get a 2-0 count, I'm hitting the batter and saving my pitcher's stamina. I'm just saying. I
don't think that's a great strategy, but all right. Manuel Medina, 1 appearance this week out of the bullpen. It was 2 perfect innings, 2 strikeouts. He has been phenomenal. 23-year-old lefty. They got him from the Marlins this offseason. 7 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts, just 2 hits and 1 walk. The Marlins, there was definitely something there when he was with the Marlins. It was just a case of he kind of kept going between like the FCL and single A, and he would have good stretches and bad stretches. And so the Marlins have definitely seen the flashes before. And I mean, it's just been 7 innings, but it looks like the Red Sox are at the very least getting one of those like really interesting flashes of the good potential. His stuff's fun to watch. He's 23, so it's one of those things where he's only made 3 appearances, 7 innings. But I wouldn't be too shocked if he got promoted semi soon. Like if he has 1 or 2 more outings that look really good, and he's all of a sudden at 10, 11 innings without allowing a run, and he just keeps striking people out, I could see him getting moved up pretty quickly, pretty aggressively, because again, that's not a young age to be at single A, and he's already spent time there in the past with the Marlins. And it would just be really fun to have him and Eduardo Rivera as 2 guys who could potentially be very intriguing finds, getting time in high A, and hopefully both continuing to dominate. But yeah, Salem did not have the most exciting week this week. So there's not too many people to talk about at the level.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, from the pitching standpoint, I kind of Judice was the name that popped out to me. So that's it. Oh, wait, did I have anything else? No, I don't have anything else.
I'm just looking at what I have down here. Michael Sansone had 2 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts. Nathaniel Cruz had 2 1/3 scoreless innings in terms of earned runs. He did give up 1 unearned run, but 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. The unearned run, but no earned runs. And then, yeah, I think that's all I have.
I did just have one other note. I didn't really get to see it because I was at a game. So I have like everything on mute and everything when it's happening. But Trenner O'Donnell did leave his game. Like the announcers even said like, oh, the guy coming in for him will get as long as he needs to warm up. So I didn't see what happened, but Trenner O'Donnell did leave his game with apparently an injury. Obviously no actual word on it yet. He's not listed as going to the IL or anything. So maybe it was nothing, but there is just a little note to keep an eye out for the fact that Trenner O'Donnell did have to leave the game early because of an injury. Hopefully he's fine. He's been up and down this year with Salem. He had a phenomenal appearance or a phenomenal start at the end of April. But he's had some issues with allowing hits this year. But he's shown he was really solid last year, and he's shown some really good things this year in stretches. So hopefully he's fine. Hopefully he comes back quick. It seems like a guy who could move up to high A at some point this year.
Jake, do we have an FCL minute?
We certainly do. Andy Azakar continues to be off to a really good start as sort of one of the more highly touted prospects in the FCL. 6 for 18 with 3 doubles this past week. Avinson Pinto had another decent week. He had 3 stolen bases over the course of the week. And, maybe the big name currently there is D'Angelo Ortiz, certainly the big last name. 6 for 15 this past week with three runs scored. I really do feel like we will probably see D'Angelo Ortiz in Salem before the end of the year. It makes too much sense. On the pitching side, just a couple of names. Williams Rodriguez. It's basically Williams with a U after the W, which is a name I've never seen before. He had 9 strikeouts out of the bullpen, just 2 walks in 5 2/3 innings with 4 hits and an earned run. And then in his, I believe it was a start, pitcher Denison Sanchez had 7 strikeouts in 2 2/3 innings. So early going, not a lot from Dalvinson Reyes. He had 1 start the first week. It wasn't very good, and it didn't look like he pitched at all this past week. So not sure if there's anything physical going on there, but
I did just want to throw a quick shout out to with D'Angelo Ortiz. I was calling him Baby Poppy just because it made sense to me. And someone pointed out that Jay Hay apparently called him Big Hee-Ho, which I think is just the best name of all time. So I'm 100% on that. It means big son. I'm a big fan. But yeah, just super quick shout out for that because nicknames are always fun. And D'Angelo Ortiz has been off to a good start and deserves one, mainly because his father is David Ortiz, but still.
Definitely. I don't have anything else to add for FCL minute. So we have a special version of Guess the Prospect. I don't even know if I can really call this Guess the Prospect. I have not given the guys warning on this. But I figured we'd take a break from a normal Guess the Prospect and even our abnormal sometimes ones to get really wild here. I was just looking randomly through Baseball Reference and through Twitter, whatever, and also through Sox Prospects. And Sox Prospects has an ex-Red Sox players page where they have active X prospects, other active X players who play for the Red Sox, and then they have inactive X players since players who have basically had pages on the website, on the Sox Prospects website. So out of those active, X prospects and players, I was just doing some looking and digging. And just one example I found, which I found funny, is Darwinson Hernandez, Jeter Downs, and Naoyuki Uwasawa all play for the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. So that was interesting. So I'm going to give you guys 3 players. Whoever names the most of where these players play, I guess will win. So it's kind of best out of 3, but I don't know if you're going to be able to get all 3. They could be some answers. So for example, answers I will take are indie ball, whatever foreign league they're potentially playing, if they're playing in the minor leagues or playing in the big leagues.
So we don't have to name the team they're on. We have to name
unless
where
I say.
Okay.
Unless I say.
And so we're guessing like what level of baseball they're playing or where they're playing.
Where they are playing.
I need
where they are playing.
I need that video of Shaq holding up the Chinese letter with the Gong Hong Tigers. I need that video. But so if it's the name of
for example, for Darwinson Hernandez, he's playing in Japan. So you'd have to say is like the NBA or just Japan.
That works.
And if you're asking for the team, is location
it's going to be one of the big league teams.
Okay.
Or who they are, what organization they're in.
So it's just whoever says it first.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have 3 players.
Okay. All right.
So first player, this one has come up recently today because he's joined a taxi squad and might be making a start for them. Where is Brandon Walter playing?
Houston, the Astros.
Jake's got it. That was an easy one. That was a warm-up question, but Jake gets the point.
All I remembered is that they were playing the Rangers.
Second question, or second player. What now this is a league question. What league is Phillips Valdez playing in?
Good for him.
Phillips-
Mexico.
Who said Mexico?
Hunter said Mexico.
Hunter's got the point.
Okay.
This is just where I wanted it. We have a
the
tiebreaker.
rubber match. Here we go.
This player, all I'm going to ask for, this one is outside of the box. It's just all I'll say. Shout out UMass Dartmouth alum. Shout out Nate Tellier. Where does he play? Who does he play?
Savannah. No, not Savannah Bananas. The Party Animals.
Hunter's got it.
Ah,
He plays for the Party Animals.
Follow him
Wow.
on TikTok.
nice. Yeah, and he's a local guy too. So
Yes.
cool.
So Hunter's got it 2-1.
All right.
Hunter wins this round, so he gets 1 point.
I like that. That's good. I think that might stick. You threw. I was gonna like say I wasn't prepared for that, but that's
It's a good way to shake things up.
It's a good game.
Yeah, so it wasn't anything too crazy. So Hunter, was it 4-2 now?
5-2.
5-2.
5-2. Jeez.
Kicking my butt.
Hunter's kicking butt this year. Jake,
Right.
maybe when draft time comes around, Jake will
He'll make a
Yeah,
big
we'll see.
run then.
that'll probably happen. I'll just mention too before we get going. Ryan Fitzgerald
Yay!
got
Shout
called
out
up
to
to the big
Fitzy.
leagues.
Thank
Made it
you.
to the
Yes.
big majors.
Time.
Congratulations to Ryan
Didn't
Fitzgerald.
someone else make their debut? Like Matthew Lugo obviously already had Ryan
Yeah.
Fitzgerald.
He's been doing great too.
I feel like there was
I
someone
feel
else.
like there was someone else too, but I don't.
Because I told myself to put the note in. I wanted to say about Ryan Fitzgerald. Nico Cavadas is robbing homers in AAA, which is hilarious.
Absurd.
Man, it really felt like there was another promotion.
Yeah, I wish I could remember. I don't know, but Ryan Fitzgerald was the big one.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. 30 years old. He spent like 3 years in Worcester, went to the Royals, spent 2 years on their AAA team. He was hitting like 348 in AAA too. So yeah, very deserved. Love seeing that. Love seeing a guy that just never gave up finally get a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is wacky. Also, just another note of if you want to go look on the active on this all the Red Sox players page on Sox Prospects, I would recommend it because it's kind of wacky. On the left hand side, they have a key link section, and the third one down is X players. So further down is like the rankings history, but it's a cool page to check out. So I'd recommend that. But with that, I think it's that's a good point to wrap it up on. So as always, for Jake and Hunter, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to the minor league show here on the Pesky Report, and we will see you next time.